Hi all. Right, let's move on to a little bit more of this. So we've got the cards sorted out. Well, we think we have. So there's the part that we've got to sorting the cards. It's alright. I wasn't want to, so I keep away from showing you the bit but down below. We come to a process called sort cards, following instructions that have already been detailed previously in key concepts. Erasmus hand sorts to the below. Also, let's flag which MI cards are considered restricted. So it's got them in the order, and the first two are unrestricted, obviously, and the next two restricted. And just checking what we've got: VDM Condo, Central Force, Operation MI, Colonel Suji, Weather Card, War in Europe, Major, and US Army. Right, that's exactly how we've got them set out, so that was right. So, good. So, once we've sorted the cards, on to step B. So, does the hand currently hold more than 2 cards? Well, yes it does. It holds 7. So, I'm not going to jump back to the example I play that, but basically, it just asks you that question. Does the hand currently hold more than 2 cards? And it answers yes, so that's correct. So now we're going to move on to C. Is this the very first card to be played this game? Well, yes, it is. So again, I'll not jump back to the example I played. Well, I'll maybe come back, but anyway, it's a simple question that doesn't really need much thought. So then we move on to D. And D says, does the hand include Operation I, Go, or second operational phase military event cards? Is that the 2 cards? Yeah, that's the 2 cards that you start the game with, isn't it? The 2 cards that get removed. So yeah, we don't have them. So obviously, I think if you were playing the very first turn, I think that's where that would trigger there, I'm guessing. Yeah. So that's a no. So then we move on to E, and E is there an unrestricted military event available to play? Well, yes, we found that there was 2, I think, that are unrestricted. So, where are we? That was E, wasn't it? So E is a yes. So then it says unrestricted event EC strategy. So then we look for the box that tells us more about that, and it's up here. So it says unrestricted military event EC strategy, and then the criteria is pick the card with the highest logistics value. If there are offensive bonus, pick in the following priority: paratrooper bonus, non-para bonus, or no bonus. So remember, it's got to be an unrestricted military card, so we're looking for the unrestricted military card that we have in our hand with the highest logistics value. Okay. So there's the 4 military event cards that we had, but remember, these 2 were restricted and these 2 were not restricted. So it's between these 2, and then we pick the one with the highest logistics value. And although it talks about the bonus, the paratroopers bonus, this does have the paratroopers bonus, but the priority to pick the first one is the logistics value. And this has got a logistics value of 7, this has got a 5. If they both had a 5 here, for instance, it would then say, well, wait now, this has got the paratroop bonus, so we'll play this one first. So this is going to be the card that we are going to use as the very first card play, I think. Oops. And then, yeah, sure enough, so just jumping back there, B was, does the hand currently 2 or more cards? Yes. Is this the very first card to be played this game? Yes. Does it include the 2 starting cards? No. Is there an unrestricted military event available to play? Yes. And then the chart resolves to unrestricted military event EC strategy. Following the instructions in the detail box, the selected card is 47 VADM Condo. So yeah, we've got the right card. So So next page, the card is selected. Now we continue to the task force composition sheet. So this is another one of the another flow chart that you find. There it is. And then in consulting the notes right at the start, we need to create a force for each objective determined by the axis of determination. So the axis of determination was the very first chart that we looked at, and it says there are 3 targets for this first objective, which was neutralise allied HQs. And let's just see if we can get that bit back. There, yeah, it was neutralise allied HQs, and there's the 3 targets it's talking about. However, like it says here, Philippines, Singapore and Abda, but since Abda HQ is not on the board yet, there are really only 2. So there's only 2 choices just now, which is the Philippines, which is our priority, and then if we've still got more units, you know, more stuff we can do, then we'll try to neutralise the Singapore HQ as well. What am I looking for again? Task force composition, right, okay. So here's the task force composition chart, which is another one. So that's got to be number and the one as well, and like it says, going by the notes, number 1 says, oh, oops, that's a bit too close, Grant. Create a force per this chart for each target determined by the axis of determination chart. If OC offensive and 1 battle hex has already been designated, only consider unoccupied targets, then 2 card combinations. That puts more ground, air, then naval closer to the next highest priority target. This 2 card combination bit kind of scares me a little bit, but the whole example doesn't really go through any of that. But I guess you could come to situations where, and what it means by that is, I think using 1 card on your turn on your offensive to put things into place to be able to then use the next card the next turn to carry out the objective that you were trying to do. I think that's what the gist of that is. Never had to look at that yet, but I dare say that could come into it. But this is complicated enough, this, at the moment. So, and what it does also talk about, if it was an OC offensive, then you've only got 1 battle hex. Now, I'm not going to go into all the rules here because I'm not completely clear about them all myself anyway. But you've got to have to get some idea of the game, so you should know that if it's an OC offensive you're doing, you can only have 1 battle hex. Well, I can talk about that in a bit, but if it's an EC offensive, you can have as many battle hexes as you want. So that's why it mentions it there, that if you've then done your battle hex, then the only other things you would consider try to take are empty hexes that are you're not creating battle hexes by moving into. Anyway, so yeah, so that's what it's wanting to do. So if we move up to the start and then A, well, A is this an air naval attack on the target? And well, let's see what we're trying to do. Right, so our priority is to neutralise the Philippines, and to do that, like we said, this unit's exerting an AZOI. However, this air unit underneath the HQ is neutralising that air ZOI. So if we want to neutralise this HQ, we just need to remove this air unit. So if we can take that air unit out, then this HQ is not going to be able to trace supply, because it's got an enemy AZOI around about it, and it's not cancelled out with one of its allied units. Yeah, I think that's as good a description as I can give. So the question was, is this an air naval attack on the target? And the answer is, well, yes, because we need to take that air unit out. So we need to have an air attack on that target. and it can be air units or carrier units. Remember, carrying units they're sort of air as well, aren't they? I mean, they've got all the aircraft on them, that's the whole point, so they can fight in the air as well, if you like, on the sea but in the air. Okay, so yeah, so the question A was in the book, is this an air naval attack on the target? So the answer is yes. And then we come to the first target. What was that? Yes, air raid. Right, okay. Just try to work out how best to show this. Okay, so is this an air naval attack on the target? Yes. So then it comes across the air raid. And then we just shimmy across here. And then we see that an air raid says that the force that we want to create is air and then naval and carriers. So that's the force that we want. We're not interested in ground units for this purpose. And it says when choosing units, pick enough units for air parity if possible. Right, that's a tricky rule that I've not really fully got my head around. It's to do with how many air units each person has in the battle. I think if you've got less, you can only hit so much depending on how many you've got compared to how many they've got. But it doesn't really come into it here, but that is something I suppose you need to keep in mind as you get down to more complex sort of combats. I mean, to be honest, this whole first turn, the combats are quite reasonably straightforward. I think it could get quite hairy going on to the game once it gets more complex combats, and once the allies start getting reinforcements in, it could become really maybe too much for me to handle, I think. But however, we're going to plod on. So it's going to do an air raid, and then what it does is it just jumps onto here. So it says activate units for the target, and then it's got notes 3 and 4. Well, I won't jump down to 3 and 4, we'll just read them. It says, following the selected strategy's force composition type, activate the minimum number of units within range of the target that can achieve the damage level criteria for the hex. Failing that, activate as many as possible. If reaction is possible, take into account enemy reaction forces that can reach the target to calculate the strength required. And then, well, step 4 is, for ground units occupying a non-Japanese island's HQ hex, one must remain unactivated in the hex guarding the HQ. Well, that's not relevant to us at the moment, but that first one's basically saying that as we've got a damage level criteria that we need to reach, and yeah, sorry, I maybe should have read that. This is the bit that I just read out 3, but it's highlighted the damage level bit, damage level criteria, and if we just shimmy along here, it tells you about the damage level. And it says the amount of factors times the damage result that destroys the enemy force in the target hex. A 1 times result states that you have to have equal or greater factors, such that if achieving 1 times on the combat table, the enemy force is eliminated. For ground rules, it goes on about oral and advanced AA rules. If no value is indicated for a target, use 1 times for ground battles and 0.5 times for air naval battles. Well, if you recall, we had, it was 0, I think it's on here, isn't it? There you go, see Philippines there is a 0.25. So that's the first one that we're on. So we've got to get enough damage, like I said, that if we get a quarter result, a 0.25 result, then we've got enough to take the target out. But if you also recall what it said there, it says, where are we? If reaction is possible, we've got to take into account enemy reaction forces that can reach the target to calculate the strength required. So you've not only got to calculate the strength required to actually take the unit out, you've got to then look and see, right, if they react, and they react with this, that and this, you've got to then be able to bring the strength to cope with that. but there is a bit of jumps on it. Like, it does try and pin units down so that they can't be involved in reaction as well, which is quite clever. But well, it's clever, but I think it's part of the game, to be honest. What I've seen is a tactic that you need to use, creating battle hexes elsewhere so that units can't come and join the main battle, your main target. Okay, so where were we? Right, so we were up here, activate units for the target. And then it goes on to step I, and step I is basically just asking if you've got enough units, I think. Are there enough activations to fulfill the battle support criteria? And yeah, it's tricky to do this. I thought this would be easier, but and here's battle support criteria. Is it an air raid? Well, it was an air raid, so it says none. Automatic, yes. Battle support criteria. Right, I didn't grasp that at first, and it's not really sinking in yet. So let's look at the example I'm playing. Let's see how it pans out. Okay, so looking back to the example. So, is this an air naval attack on target? Yes. We come to the first target, Philippines, 0.25x. In reading the notes on the EOD chart, it specifies that we need to execute an air naval attack to eliminate enemy EZOI units covering the objective HQ. So it's a yes. The task force chart resolves to air raid, which leads to activate units for the target. So that's kind of like where we're at just now. And then in reading the notes, we need to activate the minimum number of units that will satisfy the first target of the objective. Remember, Erasmus needs to commit enough units to the force so that an elimination result will be achieved if a 0.25x result is rolled in air naval combat. We know the target to attack, Philippines. We know how we need to attack it, air raid, and we have the card to attack it with, the VDM Condo card. So now we consult the board, and it says the Philippines only has a single allied unit projecting an AZOI, the reduced FEAF in Manila, which is the one I showed you beside, it's right in, beside the headquarters. Now, it says it will only take 10 combat factors to eliminate it, but we need to guarantee that it dies on a 0.25x combat result. So we need to activate at least 30 points of attack strength for this first task force. First this bit threw me. I thought 38, 10, a quarter. What's a quarter of 38? Well, but a quarter of 38 is... what is it? It's 9, isn't it? No, it must be. It must round up to 10. There's a nice battle factor calculator, which I think these are sort of these kind of sums that don't agree with me too well when we're quartering things and fractions come into things and whatever. I think it actually gets a couple of these kind of wrong in the book because the way I looked at it. So what it's saying 38. So if we had 38, now you can see that column is for the quarter result, the 0.25x. So 38 is 10. Well, I suppose 38 divided by 4, here we go, is 19 divided by, yeah, it's 9.5, isn't it? 9, 18... Yeah, it is 9.5. And with this game, it's quite nice. Everything gets rounded up. So I don't think anything at all, it's all gets rounded up, which I think is a really good idea to be able to make a game like that way, because most games have, oh, you round this up, and then there'll be the odd one that you round that down. So everything gets rounded up. So yeah, admittedly, a quarter of 30 is 9.5, which rounds up to 10. So... and that's the damage that we need to take out that air unit. And just to show you that there, he's in the beside the HQ here, so probably should pop him on top. But his His combat strength is 4 and his defense strength is 10, and the 2 there is his range. So, and he's only 1 step. You can see the band through the middle arm, so he's already been reduced at some point. So he is only 1 step, so we only need 10 damage to complete this task, if you like. And then with that, we would then isolate that HQ, and that's what we're trying to do here. But however, if we roll a quarter result in the dice, if our dice roll goes horrible, we then need 38 points of combat damage. So we need to bring that. That's what that's what Erasmus wants us to bring to make sure. But it also then, I believe, maybe we'll get to that, needs to consider if anything else can come in and react. So let's carry on and have a look. Okay, so then moves on. I've just brought the card across here to say, so we know we need 38 points of strength at the moment, right? So it says, when reading the card, note there is a limited choice of HQ. We can only have the South or the South Seas HQ to activate. This choice may seem obvious. Now, when we look at the map, you'll see that the South HQ is closer to the front, and there are a lot of units around it. But many of the Japanese more powerful units, especially air units, are currently on or near the home islands. South Seas HQ can reach units in Tokyo and Nagoya, as well as all the units in the Philippines with its range. It would be better to get those units moving towards the Dutch East Indies than to use the units already there. Plus, South Seas HQ has a higher efficiency rating than South HQ. Okay, well, what is that kind of talking about? So it's basically saying this is where we are wanting to conduct this combat. This is our battle hex here, if you like. And the South Seas HQ is across here. And the South HQ is here. So the South HQ is nearer everything, if you like. But there's a lot of air units still up, not really moved out of Japan and Tokyo and that. And these are these elite air units that they have. They're really strong air units. And this South Seas HQ can actually grab them. So what the better idea is to grab them from up there and bring them down. Because the Japanese want to be moving across this way with everything. And like the example just pointed out there, this is what is it? Efficiency value. This is efficiency value rating at 2. And the south one only has an efficiency value of 1. And that gets added to your logistics value or your OC value, depending on how you're using the card. And then you add them 2 numbers together, and that's how many units you can activate in that turn, in that offensive. So it suggests we're going to activate the South Seas HQ. Right, hang on. Okay, I had to make a cut there because my wife sneaked up on me and made some rather inappropriate remarks that may have got a laugh from some of you, but may not be good viewing for some others. So hopefully I cut that bit out and we don't see that. But thanks for that, Tracy. Okay. I've also been away for a while as well. So getting back to what we were looking at, I did have a look and we were just discussing. Hopefully I cut it the right bit. And so the logistics value for VADM Condo is 7 plus South Seas HQs. Efficiency rating of 2 equals a total of 9 activations for this offensive. Singapore will be next, meaning we want to use units that are the furthest away from Manila, saving closer ones for Singapore. Right, apologies if I've already said that bit, but I couldn't remember exactly where we were. So yeah, I remember starting to say that this is the part where we've got to decide which units you pick. You've got to come up with that combat strength total to satisfy what Erasmus is looking for, but technically I think you could pick you don't need to pick the units that they're selecting here, and obviously when you get out there on your own, you're going to have to decide which things are right, and if I do carry on the game, I'm pretty sure you're going to be cringing at the units I pick. But fortunately we can still follow the example I played just now. So it says we'll activate one AD, I think AD's Air Division. Yeah, go with that. Might not be. In Tokyo, which is 3706 hex, and 3 Air Division in Nagoya, 3607 hex. It says that's going to be 40 points of attack strength. We'll call it Force A, with 2 activations used, and continue with the chart. Okay. So what I found I've done, like I say, there's 7 logistics value, and we're using South Seas. South Seas, so it's got an efficiency of 2 plus the 7, so we get 9 activations in total. So I was just chucking a little dice down there somewhere, just to remind me and keep things right. So the first 2 are going to be the 1st Air Division in Tokyo and the 3rd Air Division in Nagoya. Now, not the videos I've watched, when I activate units, most people seem to tilt the unit 45 degrees. I guess you could, maybe you could mark the unit with something else, but that seems to be the logical way of doing it. I've not seen anybody actually doing it with the HQ, but I'm going to do it. So this is the HQ that we're activating. So we've got 9 activations. So we're now looking for Tokyo's up here, and hopefully the focus is all right there. I noticed things looked a little blurry. I'm maybe zooming in too far, maybe. Okay, we'll go with that. So yeah, 1st Air Division in Tokyo and 3rd Air Division in Nagoya. So, right, let me find this. Yeah, okay, it's all good. Let's maybe stretch up a little bit onto the table there. It's just I'm having to stretch up to find these guys. So they are the ones that are on the top though. So there's the 1st Air Division. So we're activating that. And the 4th Air Division, which is in Nagoya. No, it was 3rd Air Division, wasn't it? Yeah, I was getting mixed up with them a bit, and it's the number in the top corner, because they all look the same. They're all the same strength. But there's a 1 in the corner there and a 3 in the corner there. Okay, so, and like the example says, that's 40 strength. 40 strength, now we need 38 strength, so that covers that. And we're going to call that Force A. So that's 2 activations used. So taking our activations down to 7. And let's just see where we're going now. So looking back at the example here, it then moves on to I. I've got the flow chart sitting about there as well, so just let's see I there. And I says, are there enough activations to fulfill the battle support criteria? And the battle support criteria, the part of that is that this is battle support criteria. So does it give you any? Yeah, well, if you just look at what it says there, because I was a bit thrown by this slightly, I wasn't quite sure. It says, in looking at the battle support criteria box, note that this is an air raid, so this is an automatic yes. So are there enough activations? Yes. And it says, in looking at the battle support criteria box, note that this is an air raid, so this is an automatic yes. Now it does say that in the battle support criteria box here. Yeah, so there's no sort of requirement, it's just an automatic yes. Whereas if it was a naval invasion, you would need at least 1 naval unit. I don't know. Yeah, it seems a bit hazy, that one. Not quite sure. But I guess it'll maybe come together. So, anyway, it feels like we've got what we need. So, and then Jai has the damage level for the target being achieved, yes. And we'll say yes to that. And remember, we had 40 instead of, well, we had 40 and we needed 38. So, and that is Jai here. And if we just zoom out, it just tells you that it has a damage level for the target being achieved. Yeah. Are there enough activations to fulfill the battle support criteria? I guess it's maybe are there enough air units, but the fact it says automatic, yes. I don't know. Not quite sure I'm grasping that 100%, but it feels like we've got enough air units, we've got enough damage, so we're good to go. So the next part would be on the flowchart, move activated units to the target. Now I think this is where, I mean, this kind of like, I don't know, bends the rules a little bit, because, but I don't know if it's meant to, because it's the bot, because it's Erasmus, it's meant to do it this way. But I'll just show you what I mean by that, or font things, because it now says we should move the units. So this next box says move activated units to the target. So we move Force A to Clark's Field, which is hex 2812, and Manila becomes a battle hex. Well, let's just do it that way, and I'll show you what I mean by how it's set out then. And yeah, I probably shouldn't do it this way because it feels like it's not within the rules, but so we've only made 2 activations right now. So we've got 7 more activations. We are not really ready to start moving, and I definitely felt like I read the rules and it said you need to activate everything first. So we should really be activating another 5 units. Either that or we're skipping up that possibility to activate 5 more units and we're just activating these 2, but that's not quite the case. Like I say, could it be, does it matter? Probably not. Until we get down to reaction, does it matter? I don't know. We'll follow the example I played just now. So it says that we should move these 2 air units to Clark's Field, which is hex 2812, which is here. And there's another air unit already in there. So we get both of them in there, and they are attacking this hex. So they're at range. They need to move to an airport. Actually, I've kind of jumped the gun there, haven't I? Because how did they get there, Grant? Let's backtrack a little. I'm probably putting them in the wrong hexes now. But you know what, they're both coming down there anyway. Whether one was in one and the other. So they can make, because, yeah, I better make some explanations of this, just in case. So, how many hexes can these units move? Well, this is all determined by this number here. Now, it doesn't matter the fact we've used the 7 logistics value. This is the number that decides the movement factor of the units. And it's a 3, and it's 3 times whatever the movement value is. For ground units, it's 3 times 1, so it's 3 movement points. For ground units, it's kind of tricky for them to move too far, so a lot of the hexes they move into cost 2 movement points, so they don't get very far with that. But there are some transport routes they can use that gets a bit better. But for naval units, they get 5 movement points per times this, so they get 15 movement points, and that's across the sea, obviously. And then for air units, they get 3 times their movement factor. Now, for air units, it can be slightly different. And let's just zoom in on these 2. Now, you'll see both these 2 guys, they're their normal range is 2. Right, their normal range is 2, their extended range is 4, and that's the amount of movement that you can use. Is that right? And it doesn't matter with these guys, because if there was a parenthesis, if there was brackets around that 4, it would tell you that if you use that to move the 4, you would not be able to then use the units for combat within that offensive. So if that was the case, you would have to use the my guess is you would have to use the 2, and they probably wouldn't get very far to get anywhere. So I think that's right. Yeah, I think so. So, but these guys don't have brackets around their 4, so they can move 4 hexes, but they can do it 3 times, because there was 3 on the OC value of the card was 3. So it's 3 hops, as they tend to call it, 3 hops of 4 hexes to get down to where their location is. And each one of the hops has to land in a friendly controlled airbase. Okay, so this guy is going to go 1, 2, 3. No, he's not. He's going to go 1, 2, 3, 4 into Okinawa. And then we'll need to zoom out, because we're not going to get very far with that, Grant. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 1, 2, 3, 4 in here, I think. Yeah, that's an air base. And then finally, the last movement is only going to cost them 1 to move in here. So, and then, so he goes in there. Now, hang on, he wasn't able to reach Okinawa. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, he goes in there. 1, 2, 3 into Formosa, and then 1, 2, 3, 4. So he still gets there, slightly different route because of, but there's maybe other ways to have done it. And each one of the hops landed in a friendly airbase, so that was all good. So that's when they moved in there, and then they're declaring this as a battle hex, and obviously the big part of this is, maybe I should bring this air unit just up the top, because just now we'll remember that the HQ is in there, because that is relevant for what's coming up, I suppose. But their job is to take this guy out, and like we said, we needed 38 factors, so that if we got a quarter result, we're still going to guarantee taking this guy out. And I say guarantee, that's at the moment, we still haven't looked at reaction yet. So that's that. So we then move on to the next part. And like I say, I think the ordering of things is a bit muddled, but I don't know if it's just because of this example of play that we should be doing this all as a winner. I think you need to activate everyone, and it's maybe just setting out in stages here because it's trying to show you slowly what's happening. But I would still feel that you would need to activate all the units before moving them. But anyway, so K plus L, we've moved the activated units to the target. So then K plus L. So K plus L as, can enemy naval or, and these both need to apply for it to be a yes result. So can enemy naval or ground units react to this target? And then L is this an EC offensive? Well, as an EC offensive, because we are playing it as the event, the card. So that is yes. Can enemy naval or ground units react to this target? Well, this is what we need to check next. So I think this was one of the first parts that I was initially struggling to grasp, but it's not really that complicated because I've already talked about the fact that this unit has its own AZOI. Actually not, it might have been the actual choice of in naval units, because what we want to find is naval or ground units, can they react to this target? So can we put a naval unit in this hex, or can we put a carrier unit, I suppose, within range of this hex to be able to support this unit? Because at the moment he's toast. He's going to get destroyed. So, but the Japanese want to check for this first before they commit to just this for this combat and not do anything else about it. So, right. It took me a while to go through this myself, so it's not going to be any much easier trying to record it as well. Here's two naval units that are possible to react. Now, to react, these units, yeah, I've not made a great start to this. I think trying to explain everything, I'm jumping about. I'm just trying to follow the example. I think the fact the example doesn't go into smaller details about how you're doing things. I'm just trying to go through that. And I suppose most of you, if you know the basics, I think that's what I was looking for. I know the basics, and I just want to follow this example of play, so I'm trying to do it that way. But some of you might be wondering, well, how did these aircraft get activated in the first place, and what happened? Well, we activated the South Seas HQ. Now, the 12 there tells you its range. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 to what hex was that? Yeah, it was Nagoya, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and then 12 into there and 12 into there. So it can just catch the two hexes. So that was the reason that it activated day 2 units. It was from the South Seas HQ. And it has a clear, it has an activation range, clear, and it's supply, these are supplied units. This is a supplied HQ. So it's able to activate the units. And then the units made the 3 hops down to there. So I maybe should have went through that quickly. So, and now it's looking at about the possibility of the Allies reacting to that. Well, how can they do that? Well, they need a supplied HQ, and they need units within range of that supplied HQ that can reach that battle hex. So this HQ, which I maybe shouldn't have put down the bottom, has a range of 20, and at the moment that this HQ is still in supply, so it can trace 20 hexes to try and activate one of these, possibly. I mean, there is another HQ here. Now, can he activate? No, there's certain restrictions on what HQs can activate what. And I think this is a Commonwealth HQ, so I'm not sure. I don't think it can activate. I think it can only activate in American air units, if that rings a bell. Commonwealth, yeah, US air units only. So this HQ couldn't, and it's only got a range of 5 as well, but it couldn't actually activate this because it's not allowed to, basically. But this is a US HQ, so it can obviously activate US naval units as well as, what is it? Well, any US units it can activate. Chinese units, it cannot activate Commonwealth units or Dutch units. And there's not a lot that can activate the Dutch units, just the joint ones. So yeah, and where did I have the difficulty tracing this? Yeah, I guess it was here. It was the fact that they've got a couple of carriers in here. So they've got an AZOI here, surrounding this area. So in order for me to trace down here, I can't go through the AZOI. So how did this work? Right, let me see if I can work, because I did work it out myself, because basically I have to say also that the example of play, although it's very nice, it would have been so much nicer if it explained to you the sort of bits that I'm sort of saying, right, how is that, how can they trace that? It does give some explanation sometimes, and don't get me wrong, I think if it was to tell you how it's exactly going about it, it would be a whole book in itself telling you that it can do this by tracing through these hexes and to get at this and whatever. So it isn't going into it. It's basically saying you should know the rules before you even get here. I think that's why probably most people probably try and play this game, you know, two-handed, like, you know. Rather than try and use the bot to start with, but I'm just a glutton for punishment. And by the way, I started doing a recording of Fire in the Lake. We're just using the bots, and I didn't get very far in, and I've still got it set up over there, but it was a struggle, and I think I watched some other guy's video who had the new expansion for Fire in the Lake, the Truang bot system, and it looks so much smoother, and I think that would be so much easier to do. What I was trying to do was create a video for people to look at and see if they could, if it would help people understand how the bots work. But to be honest, I didn't get an awful lot of feedback saying that, oh, I would want to see more of that as well, because I think Fire in the Lake as well, people either play it with more than 1 to 4 people, probably 2 to 4 people, or they just play each faction by themselves, you know. The bot is just a bit too fiddly, so I'm hoping this one's not going to be as much, but it still looks challenging enough. Anyway, right, let's look at how we can trace 20 range. Now, see, we can trace into this hex, actually. Right, let's see if you can just do this by yourself, Grant, without thinking about it. This is an AZOI into this hex, but our own aircraft is an AZOI into this hex too. And the activation, yeah, it's pretty simple enough, isn't it? We just go 1, 2, 3, and we just need to keep out of that hex, for instance, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I think that's right. Let me check. That's not going through. No, that's although it's land in between, there's a bit of water there. I think that's an illegal move, isn't it? You know. The thing is, it kind of needs to go that way, because it can't really go this way, because it goes out here, because remember this has got a zone of influence here and here. So, although, again, can it not go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? See, this is the hex side that it can't trace through. But then, hang on, this is just to activate. This is not to trace supply, is it? Okay, just let me... Unit activation. An activation path is traced from the activating HQ to the unit being activated and can be traced across any hex side except the following: a water hex side of an unneutralized enemy zone of influence hex, any land hex side of a hex occupied solely by an enemy ground or air unit, and it may not exceed the command range. And unlike a supply line, an activation path can be traced across unplayable hex sides. Oh, well, okay. I can switch from land to sea without the need for friendly ports. Only a single HQ per side can be used to activate units for one offensive. And I'm talking activation here. I'm pretty sure the rules are the same for activating and reacting. Ooh. I'm saying that not confidently, am I? I get the feeling there's something slightly different, but hang on. Nah, you know what? I'm just going to stick with that now. I get there's something in the back of mine saying that there's something slightly different about reaction, but. And we're still checking to see if these naval units could react. I mean, we're still in the Japanese turn here, the Japanese offensive, and we're sort of in the middle of their movement phase, if you like. Well, they've already moved some units, but that's maybe just to follow the example, I think. So yeah, I started thinking, I was wondering about if this unit can trace supply. I mean, I counted away up to the, you know, the Pearl Harbor HQ, and it's exactly 25 hexes to here, I think. But I'm starting to doubt that I need to be getting supply from the HQ that's going to activate me. That doesn't sound right, mind you. This units by contrast trace supply lines from an in-supply HQ to the hex they occupy, limited by the HQ's range. Units by contrast trace supply lines from an in-supply HQ to the hex they occupy. Yeah, maybe that is okay to. I think they can gain supply from another HQ and get activated from that. I think that is right. However, I think the fact this isn't a land hex. This is a water hex. You know, a ship could be in here. That's my looking on that. However, there's a land unit in there though, so maybe that's wrong. Okay, but I'm going to move on here, and we're going to assume, and somebody can correct me then, that we can trace supply from this unit and have it activated from this HQ, going out here and then down. So that one can, and then the other one can come out this way. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So he's within range, and also there's that same supply trace to that HQ. And yeah, no, I don't want to say that. I'm starting to think that he can trace supply from this, but maybe that isn't right. Yeah, there's a lot of things to keep on top of here. Okay, so it does look like both of these units could react to this, and I suppose the reason I know this is because it's saying it in the example I play, isn't it? I mean, that's our get out just now. If I was trying to do this myself, I'd be like, oh, I don't know if that's allowed or not. So let's go back and look. Okay, so this is part where we're at. K&L, can enemy naval or ground units react to this target? And is this an EC offensive? Well, we knew it was an EC offensive, so that was a yes. But can they react? Well, we've decided they can. So it's a yes and a yes. So the next box, let's go down there, after K&L for the yes is consider performing a smothering attack. And then C, CDSS, so let's see the rule book. What we'll do is hope that the example here has an explanation of that. So it says, the next box says, consider performing a smothering attack. An interesting question. The map board shows that the Allies only have 2 units that could react to this target. The naval units in Biak and Batavia. And just let me see, Batavia has the full one and Biak's got the reduced one. Yeah. First, the reduced CA, US, Asia and Biak. won't stop Erasmus from eliminating the FEAF on a 0.25x result because it is already reduced. So let's not bother with that one. Well, let's just have a little look at it. Okay, so I looked into that one, trying to work out what it was that was meaning by that. So this could come and join the battle. And what it's saying is there's a strength of 10 in there. If we got a quarter result from 40, we would only be able to hit 10 points of damage. So you would kind of think at first, if this guy was in here, he's got 6 defense. So is that not going to protect the air unit in there? Well, no, because this is reduced and the other unit's reduced, we are allowed to pick any one. If this was a full strength unit, it would be. And that's where the other guy comes into it. Because you can't hit the last step of a unit in the hex. If there's another full strength unit in the hex, you've got to reduce them down, you know, the same before you can eliminate it. I think the critical hit situation comes in and breaks that rule, but well, we're not talking about that, we're just talking it straight up. So basically what it means is if that unit moves in there, these guys roll a quarter result, they still kill the air unit in there, and then that naval unit's just sitting there doing nothing. It's not really helped at all. So that's why it ignores that one. So then it carries on. However, the DD US Asia is full strength and could prevent Erasmus from eliminating the FEAF. There is a threat that is worth spending an activation to attack. And this is what I was saying about, it would have been nice if it had elaborated about the difference between these two units. You know, I kind of had to work that out for myself. However, if you know the basic rules, you would understand that right away. So that's not a knock on this. It's just probably I'm trying to move on quicker than I should be, and should be getting the rules down a bit quicker, a bit sooner than trying all this nonsense out, really. Okay, so it says, let's make use of the card bonus, which increases the offensive power of Japanese CA naval units by 2. And admittedly, yeah, without jumping across the card here, it says its bonus is float plane tactics. Japanese CA naval units add 2 to their attack strength for the duration of this offensive. So obviously, yeah, that makes sense. So it says by 2, activate CA Nachi and Davio to attack the DD US Asia and Batavia. Another activation used, total of 3, and another battle hex created for Task Force A. So again, this is where it's kind of bending the rules a little bit, because now we're going back to activate more units after we've moved units, but again, it could just be built in. And you know what, it might actually say something like that at the beginning of this book. So I'm not knocking that, and it's a good way of learning it. So we activate, who was it? Nachi and Davio, right. Okay, so Davio's here and there's an Nachi on top. Okay, good stuff. So, well, it's nice these units are different size sometimes, but okay, so we've activated that, and I'll knock my dice down to 6 now, so we've still got 6 more activations. And Davio to attack the DD US Asia and Batavia, which is the unit across here. Yeah. So does it move it yet? Hang on. So basically we're activating this to come down, and again he's got 3 times 5 movement, so he's got 15 movement, and he can just stroll down here. Well, actually he's got to go in the hex, isn't he? And does it actually move it? yeah, it doesn't talk about it again, so I'm assuming it's moved it. But again, I don't think this should all happen until we're ready to move everything. But it's just to make it easier, I think, to understand. So this guy comes down here, and he's going to attack here. So now I've got two battle hexes. The battle hex here and the battle hex here. And the reason for that is that now this US Asia unit cannot react because it's pinned into its own battle here. And that's the point of moving that down. And not only that, we've got 10 strength against 4 defense. So there's a good chance we're going to, like, maybe even eliminate this unit. It's on its full strength side, but it's only going to take 8 damage to take it out. Or, you know, if we get a poorer result, we can maybe damage it at least. And the fact that it's got 2 strength to hit us back at, and we've got 10 defense. So it's a bit of a no-brainer that that's fine with that. And it now removes the fact that that unit can come up and react. So now we're good. And this is what this smothering attack was. And it does talk about it in the book, and just briefly, where are we? Smothering attack. Where are you? I'm pretty sure it's in here somewhere. Oh, there it is, yeah. It was on the same page. A smothering attack is when one or more air and or naval units are activated and moved to pin an enemy unit or a stack of enemy units by attacking the hex. By attacking the hex or hexes they reside in to create battle hexes other than the target hex. This can only be done during an EC offensive because more than one battle hex is required to be made. So yeah, because we're putting this as an event, we can create as many battle hexes as we want. And then it goes on to say, usually this is done to protect an amphibious assault because the air naval battle has to be won by the offensive player in order for the air amphibious assault ground units to be able to land and fight in the ground battle. The allied player especially can leverage his long-range bomber units to great effect by using this technique because they have a longer range than regular air units, and the allies receive a large number of air replacements. But then it goes on, when building a task force for Erasmus using an EC offensive, consider implementing a smothering attack to help ensure the main target of the objective or strategy can be achieved. Now that's what it's meaning. It's like, right, there's a risk that if they react, this will come up there and spoil this plan, and we won't get to eliminate that air unit, and we won't get to achieve our objective of isolating that HQ. But then it does say that, it says, but be careful not to needlessly risk powerful units that can't be easily replaced on these pinning attacks. Smothering attacks are an exception to the default damage level rule. Any amount of combat factors from a single air naval unit can be employed to pin a hex, and usually the lower the better. So basically what it's saying is, just chuck a low level unit out there just to stop that unit from reacting to spoil your main plan up here, right? So that's what we've done there, and that's built into the bot, which I think is great. You know, I mean, okay, I suppose it would have to be there, or it might be a bit random, you know, about if they were going to react or not, I suppose, because there is a roll of dice involved, usually, not always. Okay, right. Okay, I'm not going to push on too much further because I realise these videos are stretching out again. So this was us created this other battle hex. Sorry, too far up. There we are. And then it goes on to, let me just stretch this, and yeah, that was consider performing a smothering attack. Okay, so we've done that, and then it goes up to M, and M says, is this the last objective? Down here. Well, no, it's not, because we then wanted to consider, I'll find the right bit, here we are, that is a successful, I don't think anything can stop it from happening, that is a successful neutralisation of the Philippines HQ. I don't think there's any risks involved there because 0.25x is the lowest result you can get. So, is that the last objective? No, we want to go on and see, I mean, we've got 6 activations still left, so we want to go on and see if we can do Singapore. Actually, this is probably a better point just to stop, isn't it? While we go into that one. Yeah, and I think there's enough footage there to create another video. I know I've got cut a little bit out, but I could just leave it in for the walls, but it may cause some people offence, so we'll not. Yeah, and just to point out there, I'm saying this is guaranteed because that's the lowest result you can get. And I think it's guaranteed. I think that means that's 100%. However, we're taking a slightly riskier chance with Singapore, and it must do that. Maybe just add some random factor, or maybe not to put everything in the one, all the eggs in the one basket, because it needs a 0.5x result. So if we build a force for a 0.5x result, and then we roll the dice and get a 0.25x result, then this is going to fail, and we're not going to achieve our goal. More than likely, I think, it's going to fail. So there's a slightly more risk involved in that. But obviously, it wants to guarantee the Philippines, then wants to take a slightly riskier chance on the Singapore one. And then, because ABDA's not there, then, well, we'll get to that. We'll get to that. So I think I'll just leave that for now. And yeah, that's where we're at. Is this the last objective? No. And then it leads on to a box, create a new force for the next target. But like I say, I'll leave that there, and we can try and put that video all together now, nice and clean. And right there. Okay. And we can see we've only activated 3 units. These are the 3 that are tilted at 45 degrees. And we started with a total activation of 9, and we're down to 6. So that's correct. Okay, right. Well, hopefully some of that's making some kind of sense. And hopefully it's useful to some people. Like I say, I'm hoping it's going to be of use to myself. And that's the main purpose. But if anybody else benefits from it, then that's even better. So I'll be back with the next part of this card. It's only the first card, so you can see it's going to take a while to get through all this, but it's my way of doing things, and if you've not watched any of my previous stuff, then unfortunately it doesn't get any better than this. It doesn't. This is how it goes. And I'm taking a break from, I said my last recording was D-Day at Omaha Beach, which it wasn't. I started doing recordings of RAF, the Battle of Britain. Again, John Butterfield game, solitaire game. Well, it can be played 2 players as well. I just I haven't really get the chance to get back at the table. And when I came back today, I'd just finished going through this, and I thought it'd be nice to maybe just record this and just change it up a little bit, because I really want to get into this game. I do. I think I'm stepping over the line a bit. I think it's beyond me, but who knows? If you keep, I think it's a game you keep at it, and if you're willing to, ideally you want to play it against somebody else, somebody that's the same level as yourself probably as well. But you're only going to get to their level if you keep playing and practicing and trying again and realising you're making clumsy moves and whatever. There's a few videos out there. What was it? The guy, was it Counter Attack? He's got some nice videos in it, and he, well, I'm not saying he bumbles his way through, but he admits to making lots of mistakes. He plays both sides in it, but he admits to making lots of mistakes, and he gets pointed out a few errors, but he also makes mistakes, like strategic mistakes, or to some people that play this game would be sort of like daft moves, if you like, but I'd be exactly the same. I'd be doing far worse than that. But I suppose the more of these videos that you watch and the more understanding you get, you start to see. But the fact that you've got to do that, I mean, if you can imagine there that we were playing against somebody and we wanted to do this, then we would have had to think, right, can they react to this? And at the moment, it's simple. Yes, he could react with that or that. That's it. And they're two kind of crappy, sort of, whatever they are, cruisers or something. And they're the ones that can attack. And we know this one's not going to bother us. And okay, this one is. But you know what? We've got loads of ships about. We'll just chuck that guy over there and pin him down, and then there's not a problem. But as the turns go on, the Allies get a big bunch of reinforcements every turn and replacement steps, and it then becomes these attacks. You're going to have to think about, right, I'm putting 40 strength into that, 40 combat damage into that. He can maybe react with this, he can maybe react with that, do this, do that, and then there's cards that come into it that can alter things. So yeah, fascinating game. So hopefully I can, sorry for some of the glare, but I've got different lights everywhere. And hopefully, excuse me, hopefully I can get into this, and hopefully I can enjoy it with the bot. I dare say the bot could be, you could see what it was going to do, and maybe you could play around that after a while, but I still think it'd be a good challenge, because these cards that I've drawn, you know, they're going to be different next time, you know, so that can change a lot of things up, you know. Anyway, I'll stop going on for now, and I'll be back to finish off this first card play sometime soon. Okay, cheers.